day about lists of incompletes and tolerances. What do you mean? It's those things that build up over the years that someday we think we'll get around to doing, and somehow make an excuse that gets in our way of doing the thing. I'm sure you know what I mean. I'll share a personal story of mine. I realised a couple of weeks ago that there were a few things that I hadn't got around to, mainly courses that I'd got in the middle of and hadn't completed, a few tasks that required a bit of time dedicated to finishing them off. What else? Arrangements that needed to be made on, say for example, a trip that I planned and I hadn't got around to getting in touch with the organiser. It's those things I mean. And over time, they can have an invisible heaviness to our ability to create or experience the things that we want out of our life. So I'm sharing as a means to encourage you to maybe consider another way of dealing with those incompletes and tolerances. And what I've come up with, something that I read about, her name is Bev James, I believe. She wrote a book called Do It or Ditch It. So I'm just going to take that term and lovingly redirect it to the list that I would suggest you come up with. Write all those things that you've been tolerating, all those things that are incomplete, and I think try and think of everything and probably dedicate 15 to 20 minutes on that and see what comes up. I mean, I had quite a few things. I mean, I've done this list before, but again, because I discovered it a couple of weeks ago, I had quite a number of things outstanding. I used that as a launch pad to say, okay, I'm not going to sign up for any more courses. I'm not going to buy any more books. I'm not going to do all these things because I was just adding to the heaviness that was already there. So I made a decision at that point. I'm going to start clearing down some of these incompletes and tolerances so that I can start moving forward again. And the suggestion from Bev James, the writer, it's a book. And again, I don't think you need to read the book. I mention it because it's the title of her book, but I'm repurposing it as a suggestion to create a list for yourself and then start going through each item and making a decision. Are you going to do it? Are you going to ditch it? And make that part of your decision making, because ultimately what is happening as we start to make excuses as a justification so that we feel better about not getting round to doing the thing, we end up on this place called Someday Island. Someday Island, where I'm going to learn a new skill. Someday I'm going to get a new job. Someday I'm going to travel to some distant place. It's all someday. And again, this all contributes to the heaviness of things that we desired for ourselves and somehow got lost. Because it ultimately comes down to one or two things. It's either a loss of inertia because we haven't built up that consistency so that motivation takes over from willpower, or it could be a lack of confidence. We found a place to hide. We found a way to keep ourselves small, minimised, so we're not doing the things that we intended. So I encourage you to start creating a list of what you're tolerating, what you have as incomplete, really dump out onto paper every little thing, then line by line decide, are you going to do it and ditch it? Because ultimately, the difference between the action takers and the people that move forward and are successful in life is, it's basically either thinking about the thing or just getting on and doing it. And really, if you're watching this channel and you desire to be an action taker, I'm hoping that you're going to be inspired to do the thing, start getting into action. So really think about that list in terms of, if you're making excuses and making yourself feel better for not doing the thing, not taking action, what is it going to take to get into action, and be honest about that? Be okay. It might require support. I'm on hand. There might be other means. See what is true and right for you. But the invitation is to write that list as I suggested. Think about it in terms of, if you're on Sunday Island, what difference would it make to you if you don't get it? And that is where we can get into a place full of regret, and we really don't want that in our lives. We want to experience whatever we're here to do, what our calling is, our mission, and part of that does require us to step out of our comfort zone, and it can be momentarily. And even if you write that list and say that's just enough for now, that is a starting point for you to start to identify, is this really enough? Is this really important for me to make a decision on? And then if you do not feel the same way about that tolerance or incomplete, then I would lovingly remove it from your list so you've forgotten about it, so you can move forward with what is right and aligned for you. So again, I shared that story. I realised I had a list of things going on that I hadn't got around to, and I stopped myself from adding to it. That was that. And also to write a list about the things that I was ready to ditch because they were no longer relevant, and be okay with that. And if you see it as a means of creating spaciousness, space, so that you can start to detach mentally from the things that are no longer relevant for you to pursue, you are going to create space for what matters, because you're leaving everything else behind, anything that no longer serves you. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and share. Please also get in touch if you fancy working with me. I'm available for consultations. Also, I've got resources available to you if you fancy deep diving some of the things I do. There's a video that I did with a fellow coach a couple of years ago that might be of use for you. It's emotional resilience goes hand in hand with happiness. And I'm trying to think, there's other bits that you might find useful if you want to also get to know a bit more about me. There's other videos, so please do go through those, and I'd appreciate them. Like, comment and share. And that's it. Speak to you again soon.